Hey there, Zack Henderson here, and today's video is a follow-along workout that is tailor-made for those who are recovering from a lower limb injury. Whether that's a broken foot or a sprained ankle, maybe a knee issue of some kind, or in my case, a fractured tib fib. You are in for about 17 and a half minutes of non-weight-bearing exercise that will address both the upper and the lower body, strength, flexibility, and mobility. I offer plenty of modifications along the way, so check it out. I do hope you like it, and if you do, drop a comment and a like, and here's wishing you a speedy recovery no matter where you're at along the journey. Enjoy. All right, so we're getting started here with the workout in a seated position with some basic spinal waves. So as I reach the hands forward, I'm thinking about rounding my shoulders, really stretching between the shoulder blades, and then pulling my hands back and driving the chest forward. So just going for that forward and back motion there, creating those spinal waves, just to get the back, arms, and shoulders nice and warmed up. From here, we're going into one of my very favorite shoulder mobility exercises. This is the Egyptian twist. So all I'm doing is throwing one arm into external rotation, looking over that palm as the other one goes into internal rotation. All you really need to focus on is driving the palms high to the ceiling and really stretching the fingers as far away from each other as they will go. Here we're moving into a cross-body march where we are quite simply putting one hand on top of the opposite knee and creating some vice pressure. So the arm is actively pressing down, the knee and leg are actively pressing up, and this is just going to help coordinate your lats and your hip flexors through your core. So the rest of our workout will be on the ground. So we're getting started with elevated glute bridges, and if you have a broken leg or a hurt foot in any capacity, you are not doing your squats and deadlifts. So the next best thing is to unload the feet and work the glutes and hamstrings with bridges. And this elevated version is a great way to really get into those muscle groups without really having to worry too much about the range of motion. Moving right into dead bugs, just a classic core exercise. And again, it goes back to that theme that we were talking about earlier with linking the upper and lower body together. Now you can see I've got my boot on. If you have your boot or cast, you will obviously be feeling this much more on that injured side, right? Because all that extra weight is putting more leverage there on the hip. So just be aware of that. You don't have to bring that leg as far out. That's totally fine. And then we're moving into hip internal and external rotations. So pretty simple here, but this feels amazing for the deep hip musculature, and it's really quite simple. You're just raising a knee up to that 90-degree angle and kicking a ankle out as far as it'll go and in as far as it'll go, back and forth there. And we're gonna try those 3 exercises for one more round. Here I'm just showing you another version that you can do with the bridge. This is a floating march where I'm just planting the heels on top of the box and just driving the knees in left and right. Obviously, if this is not appropriate with the nature of your injury, just stick to regular glute bridges. But yeah, if you can swing this, this is another fun one. Again, going back to the dead bugs, you really don't have to kick the hand and the leg out as far as I am here. You can just go to like 45 degrees. But the main thing is to keep your breathing nice, deep, and even, and really just make sure that you're moving at the same pace with those arms and legs to really work on that coordination. And here is another fun variation of the hip rotations. So here's like a windshield wiper style where I'm kicking left and right kind of parallel. And then this is rotating out together and in together. So again, just some variations there for you to play with, but again, working that deep hip mobility is probably going to be something that's going to feel really good for you, if you've been laid up with a injured leg. Continuing with that cross-body coordination idea, we are working on bird dogs. And what I like to do is just focus on working one side at a time. So just tapping hand to knee right there under the belly and reaching out. And we're going for 30 seconds on each side. Especially when you have a busted leg, it kind of just helps being able to take some time and focus on working on one side at a time, rather than doing the traditional alternating sides. But regardless, obviously what you want to think about here is reaching a thumb high and reaching a heel long and back. So you can actually get a really good glute and hamstring squeeze here by kind of doing that scooping out motion there with the leg. So pretty simple but underrated exercise here. And this is actually part of a triple set that includes the side plank, which is what we're moving on to here, and the McGill Curl Up, which is coming up next. So if you're in the know in the lifting community, you might be familiar with this triple set of exercises, oftentimes called the McGill Big Three. That's the bird dog, the side plank, and the curl up. So here on the side planks, we're working for 30 seconds on each side. And I like to do these in a bent knee position, right? That just tends to help obviously decrease the stress on the knee. And this is going to be something that you're obviously going to want to try if you are in a boot or in a cast. But regardless, I don't like to get too fancy on side planks. I know people like to do lots of arm circles and leg circles and stuff like that. But really what I'm doing here, as you can see, I'm kind of checking for neck tension by looking up and down. And then the only real movement I will add here is just some basic leg lifts, because I'm really just focusing on pressing the mat away with that downside knee, maintaining good height, and really just focusing on that isometric contraction of the side of the hip and the obliques. So moving on to that McGill Curl Up, what I'm doing is putting my fingers together in a wedge in the small of my low back, and then raising the elbows before crunching down into those fingers and holding. So I'm craning my neck a little bit more than I should because I'm looking at my timer there. But the idea here is that you want to keep one leg bent and one leg straight, breathing deep through my nose and just maintaining that tight abdominal contraction. For about 15 or 20 seconds per side, doing the same thing here, and as you can see, the movement is very subtle. I'm just barely lifting my shoulders up off the ground and really just focusing on crunching my abdominals down into my fingers. And because my fingers are in the small of my low back there, I'm able to keep a relatively neutral lumbar arch. And we are going to do that round one more time. So again, going back to the bird dogs, 30 seconds on each side. Just think about maintaining nice even breathing through the nose. Don't be cranking your head too far up or too far down. Just keeping things nice and neutral here as you're flying the arm and leg out around a stable torso. And then we're switching sides there. Again, working for 30 seconds. And just in the same way how we were talking about with the crossbody march in that seated position, when you do tap the hand to knee, you can give an extra push through the knee there so that the arm and the leg are kind of working against each other. And that's really just going to help ramp up the abdominal tension. And moving back into the side planks. That's going to be 30 seconds each side. Again, think about actively pushing the floor away with the downside arm and the downside knee. Adding in these leg raises here, which again are optional, especially on that side that has the boot or the cast. Again, that's going to put some extra leverage there on the side of the hip. And we are switching sides. Again, I always like to start off the side plank by rotating the head up and down just to check for excessive neck and trap tension. The whole idea with really any plank is to maintain the engagement and the muscular tightness from the shoulders down and to relax as much as possible from the neck up. And one more time with those curl ups. Again, I have another video on this exercise in particular, which can be a little bit tricky if you've never done it before, but this is a real great exercise for releasing tension actually in the low back as we really drive that good abdominal tension there in front. So again, try to keep the face and the neck somewhat neutral, and the only real height that I'm getting there is simply from my torso kind of fulcruming over my hands. And again, we're changing sides, one leg straight out, one leg bent, 15 to 20 seconds, or you can think about taking 2 to 3 deep, even breaths while maintaining that crunch position. Well, this exercise is a fun one. This is the QL walk or the butt walk, and it's as simple as it looks. You're really just shimmying from one cheek to the other cheek, backwards and forwards. The goal here is to keep the legs relatively straight, and you want to be thinking about using your low core and your QL muscles, the quadratus lumborum muscles, in order to make that shift from hip to hip. Of course, you can do this with your hands by your side, hands behind your head, or hands held overhead for different amounts of mobility challenge through the shoulders there. So this is really one of my very favorite exercises to do. And then we're moving on into the push-up. So we have a timer set here for 45 seconds, and the goal here is to keep moving or hold a plank position. So starting here with push-ups off the knees, obviously a great option if you have a lower limb injury, and you can just hold that plank position with knees bent or with legs out straight, obviously only if this is appropriate for the nature of your injury, and then obviously just going straight into standard push-ups. So no matter what variation of push-up you're doing or what plank you're doing, you just want to work there for 45 seconds. And then we're moving on into a 90-90 shin box sweep kick is basically what I call it here. What we're doing is stretching over that front shin, and we have our other leg bent off to the side. We're floating that back leg, kicking it around, and then giving a little leg raise there in front. So the shin box position is a really fun place to work on deep hip mobility, flexibility, and strength. So we're going to do 3 on each side here. This is number 3, sweeping around, and one more extra stretch there across the front. And then we'll switch sides. So again, you've got a shin in front, kind of like how you would do in a pigeon stretch, like from yoga. And then we have that other shin pointing out towards the back off to the side there. So I'm just hitting that stretch, and then sweeping that leg forward into that big leg raise. So this can be a tricky one if you've never done anything in the shin box position before, but you will you will definitely find some tight areas, and you might even cramp a little bit doing that sweep kick if you've never tried these before. But it's quite simple. I'm just taking one deep breath in that forward fold stretch, kicking that leg around into a big leg raise, and again, it's going to be extra tough on that boot side. And now it's time to cool down. So hugging the knees in close here, and we're going to do a spinal twist by bringing those knees off to one side as we extend the arm out across the opposite direction. So I'm holding here for about 3 deep breaths. You can kind of see I'm allowing my belly to expand and kind of push into my thighs there. That's going to be really therapeutic for the low back, and we're going to switch to the other side. So again, keeping those knees bent in close, I'm hooking the top knee with that hand and allowing my other arm and shoulder to splay out and across, just relaxing again with those nice deep breaths. All right, and to wrap up our workout here, we are going to hit a frog stretch. So I'm just collapsing the legs and the feet back behind me, and from a straight arm position, I'm just rocking back and forth a few times, just as far as what's comfortable into that stretch. Then we can add a little twist. I'm kind of tightening my lat as I pull my torso over to one side, and the goal there is to try to find your feet. So it's just a nice gentle twist and rotation there that again can really help you open up. And after a couple breaths, we're going down onto the elbows and doing that same rocking idea. Again, these are all just options for you to try. And as always, just maintain good deep breathing. And one little bonus here for you, we can try hip pivots where you kind of tilt forward and you raise a heel up to the sky. That's going to give you some extra deep hip rotation, which has obviously been a theme for this little workout here. And that just about does it. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.